I haven't ranked the DCEU movie since Wonder Woman 1984. It's time to fix that. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranking all 11 DCEU movies from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, the last time I ranked it was when Wonder Woman 84 came out, so now I'm going to be including the Snyder Cut as well as the Suicide Squad. But before I give you guys my ranking, definitely hit the like button, comment your ranking of all the movies down below, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future rankings, trailer reactions, videos, and all that good stuff. I also wanted to say that my ranking's probably pretty different from the last ranking just because my opinions change over time, and I'd probably like to re-rank the DCEU once a year. Same with the MCU. So coming in last place is going to be Suicide Squad. If you know me, this is one of, if not my least favorite movies of all time. I can't stand it simply because the trailer was so fantastic the way it blared Bohemian Rhapsody, and it fell so far when I actually saw the final product. Jared Leto's Joker is a complete waste and one of my least favorite Jokers. The entire villain plotline with Enchantress is truly terrible. Essentially, this is just a terrible music video acted out for nearly 2 hours of your life that you're never going to get back. It's so bland and dull, and there's nothing to really make it stand out. It slowly dissolves and fades out of my mind as each day passes. Number 10 for me is going to be Justice League, aka Justice League from 2017. Again, this movie had terrible studio interference. There was 2 directors with Zack Snyder and then Joss Whedon coming on to try and save grace near the end. It was a disaster, and you could really tell there were multiple directors at work. I think the CGI removal of Henry Cavill's mustache pretty much sums up my thoughts on this movie. Abysmal. Coming in at number 9 for me is going to be Wonder Woman 1984. This is a massive disappointment of a movie. It was 2.5 hours long, and there really was no action. It was heavily marketed as this action epic blockbuster movie that was going to come out around Christmas time. It failed miserably in that aspect because for the first hour and 10 minutes, I was about to fall asleep. That's not what you want with a superhero movie, let alone a Wonder Woman movie, a follow-up to such a badass original film in that first movie. Chris Pine comes back as Steve Trevor, and what they do with his character is almost unforgivable in my opinion. Pedro Pascal does the best he can as the villain in this movie, and this movie overall is so damn cheesy. It's going for this 80s vibe, but it's not self-aware of it in my opinion, and it honestly just doesn't work at all because it tries to take itself too seriously with this campy tone, and that doesn't really translate to superhero movies nowadays. Coming in at number 8 for me is going to be Aquaman. Now, I want to say I really do like this movie. I think there's a ton of fun to be had. I think James Wan has this direction that I truly dig as you get to see Atlantis and this gorgeous underwater landscapes. But it's interesting because when it comes to the visuals, there's certain scenes in this movie that look like a PS2 cutscene with horrible graphics. And then there's certain scenes that look great, like almost like the visual effects of Avatar. So it really doesn't make any sense to me as to how you could have such highs and lows from the visual effects department in this movie. But Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry is a badass character. Certain side villains and side plots in this movie are a little out there for me and I'm not really a fan of. And it is 2.5 hours for no reason in my opinion. You could have trimmed 30 minutes off the runtime and made it a much more succinct story that would have been much more enjoyable. But visually, it's pretty stunning at times and the action sequences are cool. It's nothing to write home about. I think it is one of the more overhated DC movies. But the difference between Aquaman and Wonder Woman 84 is they're both cheesy movies, but this is very self-aware of its cheesiness, and because of that, you can have more fun with it. It acknowledges it's doing stupid, over-the-top things throughout the movie, whereas Wonder Woman 84 was trying to take itself a little too seriously in that aspect. Coming in at number 7 for me is going to be Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition. Now, the original cut of Batman vs Superman I'm not fond of, but the Ultimate Edition adds about 30 minutes of footage that clears up the actual plotline because it was so choppy in the first hour of the theatrical cut that I was almost confused as to how certain characters were showing up in certain spots. It just didn't really make sense from a continuity standpoint, and the Ultimate Edition definitely cleared that up. The fight versus Batman and Superman is absolutely epic, and this movie is infamous for that warehouse scene where Batman just brutally beats up a bunch of thugs. That, of course, is a standout scene, and I really do like Batfleck in this movie. It's the best we see him, I think, in the entire DCEU, because Ben Affleck as Batman was never really given a fair shot, in my opinion, and he's one of the more overhated Batmans, because truly, he's brooding. He reminds me a lot of the Arkham video game Batman that we see, this big, bulked-up Batman that doesn't really give a damn anymore, and that's exactly what we get here. But as well as Superman in this movie, he has a great character arc as well, and we really see his background, so that when the two of them fight, you really do care about them. But the flaw, in my opinion, is that I feel like it's so one-sided to be on Batman's side, because the way Superman gets into the fight versus Batman is a little too gimmicky, in my opinion. The motivation for Batman to get in that fight versus Superman is much more fleshed out than the reason Superman wants to get in the fight. The entire Martha thing, we could go on a whole entire live stream and rant about, but let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of that. Doomsday in this movie, he honestly didn't even need to be in the movie, in my opinion. I don't know why they shoehorned him in the third act, but I will say Wonder Woman has one of the best superhero movie entrances of all time in this movie. movie, and her introduction is great. So there's a lot of positives with BVS, but a lot of negatives. It's not the worst movie ever, and it is one that's starting to grow on me more over time, especially with the release of the Ultimate Edition. Coming in at number 6 for me is going to be Shazam. Now, this is a surprise movie from DC because I didn't see this one in theaters. I kind of put it off. I was like, it looks very cheesy and something that I'm not interested in. I was completely wrong. This movie's a blast. It feels a lot like an MCU origin story, which is not a bad thing because I really like the MCU, but there's just so much fun lightheartedness to it as opposed to some of the darkness of a lot of this DC movie. So I like the change of tone here. I know it bothered some people, but I really do think Zachary Levi crushes it as Shazam. And seeing the camaraderie of the kids in the foster home throughout the movie, as well as seeing this coming of age story essentially, just works for me. I know the villain plotline can get really just stupid at times, which that's the case with most superhero movies, but it's one of the more enjoyable, even more rewatchable DCEU movies in my opinion, and I'm excited for Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And of course, the final shot of Shazam is such a big tease. So before I give you guys my top 5, definitely hit the like button, hit that subscribe button if you have not, so you don't miss out on any future rankings, reactions, Blu-ray vlogs, all that good stuff. Coming in at number 5 for me is going to be Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, I think this is a massive improvement over the 2017 film. It's completely Zack Snyder's vision, and you can understand that because it's 4 hours long. This is the longest movie I've ever seen in my entire life, and I would be lying if I said it did not drag at times. 4 hours is absurd in my opinion. There's no need for Zack Snyder's Justice League to be a 4-hour cut of a movie. You could honestly probably trim about an hour and a half out of it and make it a 3-hour movie or even a 2.5-hour long movie and would still be just as effective in my opinion. You actually see why Steppenwolf does what he does. Darkseid is in this movie as well, so you see his intentions and the actual vision of where the DCEU was headed before they parted ways with Zack Snyder. Superman is amazing in this movie, the way that he returns triumphantly in the black suit as the Superman theme blares. It gives me chills. One of the coolest moments in this movie. The final hour is truly awesome. That's the standout of this movie. If you just watch that final hour, it's damn near perfect. It really took chances, and of course the final nightmare sequence that you see in like a post-credit scene essentially with Jared Leto's Joker almost won me over on Jared Leto as Joker. I wish we got to see that nightmare movie play out, but Zack Snyder is probably done with DC, so we're never going to get to see it. And that's a major issue is with the Snyder Cut, it's very cool for what it is. It's 4 hours. I'm probably not going to rewatch it much ever. It definitely improves on the original. But moving forward, we're not going to get to see these characters again or see anything that's set up in this movie, so that really does upset me. It won't really age well with time, in my opinion, just because no one's going to want to rewatch it, because we're not going to get to see any more from it. Number 4 for me is going to be Man of Steel, easily the best Superman movie, in my opinion, and Henry Cavill as Superman is iconic. I pretty much view him just as iconic as the MCU casting, such as Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, and Robert Downey Jr. So it's really upsetting to me that we're not going to get to see him anymore as Superman, because I think that Warner Brothers and DC kind of wasted that opportunity. However, Man of Steel, you got probably arguably the best DCEU villain with General Zod, played by Michael Shannon to perfection. You get to see this background story on Superman, his relationship with his father, Jor-El, and then his earthly father, Jonathan Kent. It's an epic movie. You get these awesome action sequences where there's causing mass chaos and destruction in the final act, and Amy Adams as Lois Lane is a really slept-on supporting character. Plus, Hans Zimmer's score in this movie is one of the best superhero scores, one of the best scores of all time, actually. I listen to it to get hype almost every day. This is a really solid movie. I need to rewatch it pretty soon. Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be Wonder Woman. I absolutely love this movie when I saw it in theaters. The first 2 acts are extremely solid. The third act does have some issues when it comes to the villain reveal, and its over-reliance on the CGI sequences that it was removing itself from in the first 2 acts. But if you take that out of the movie, I get a great romantic story here between Steve Trevor and Diana. Gal Gadot crushes it as the badass Wonder Woman herself, especially the sequence in the trenches. That is something else, and it gives me chills every time. Her theme music is so damn iconic, and Wonder Woman is essentially like a war movie. I view it much like Captain America, the First Avenger in the MCU. I'm a big fan of both those movies. Wonder Woman just works for me. The sequel, not as much. I hope if we get a third movie that it can right the wrongs of Wonder Woman 84. My runner-up is going to be Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I don't know why they didn't just call it Harley Quinn Birds of Prey the first time they released it. The world may never know. But this is an absolute blast of a movie. You get to see Harley Quinn at the front and center, the way she's meant to be. And the reason I love this movie is because it doesn't feel like a DC movie. It doesn't even feel like a comic book movie. You get to see this criminal underside of the DCEU that we haven't really explored much in other movies. And that's something I'm a massive fan of. People have compared this to a Tarantino movie. I can see that from a certain sense when it comes to taking risks and the vulgarity of it. At the end of the day, this is just a contained crime story that's told so uniquely. I understand why it's compared to Tarantino. He's one of my favorite directors, to be honest with you guys. So Birds of Prey just has that originality. It's got great dialogue, and the way the story is told is so freaking unique. Plus, you got Margot Robbie in there as Harley Quinn. You can't go wrong with it. It's definitely one of the most entertaining, enjoyable, and rewatchable DCEU movies. Coming in at number 1 for me, taking the top spot, is the brand new The Suicide Squad from James Gunn. This movie is a complete blast. If you have not seen it, you definitely got to make sure you watch it on the biggest screen possible because it is an absolute thrill of a movie. There is some badass action sequences. Got some of the coolest characters in the DCEU, notably Peacemaker. I think John Cena gives his career best performance here. Absolutely crushes it, and I think he's setting himself up to have a massive future as an actor because he's removing himself from the brooding tough guy with not a lot of personality. He's easily my favorite of the bunch here, but Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, is another awesome addition. All of the characters in this movie are so unique, and James Gunn does such a good job getting the audience to care about these obscure characters like Polka Dot Man, Ratcatcher 2, characters no one would really care about on paper, but in this movie, they're fleshed out and you really have an emotional attachment to them as the movie goes on. It's hilarious as well. There were a few lines that had me cracking up in the theater, laughing out loud. You can't go wrong when you mix action and comedy so well, and we've seen James Gunn do that in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, but here he gets to have his full creative vision, and this movie is bonkers when it comes to the twists and turns. You will not see anything coming. You will be on your toes the entire time, and when it comes down to it, I'm just happy Warner Brothers gave James Gunn creative freedom because he absolutely crushes it here. It's a bloody fun time, much like Deadpool when it comes to the gore. This was just such a fresh movie for me that I absolutely adored it. It's almost a perfect movie in my eyes. I'm going to try and see it a few more times in theaters. It's the most unique of the entire DCEU. I cared about the characters so much. I even thought the villain plotline was pretty fitting for the movie. If you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But just the fact that they went there, they did not pull any punches. It's not the run-of-the-mill comic book narrative. It completely flips that narrative on its head. It's fast-paced, it clicks on all cylinders for me, and it's easily my favorite movie of the year so far, and my favorite DCEU movie by a long shot. But that's going to do it for my ranking of all 11 DCEU movies from my least favorite to favorite. Definitely hit the like button, comment your ranking down below. I want to have a discussion down there with you guys in the comments about your rankings. Do you agree with my ranking? Do you disagree? Let me know all that in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. But thank you all for watching. You're the best, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.